Hello and welcome back to the TVBinges.com Pilot Roundtable, a Southgate Media Group podcast. I'm Kyle Tremblay, the editor of TVBinges.com, and I am joined as always by a fellow TV Binges writer. She's currently updating her Looking Glass profile. It's Olivia Richards. Hello.
That's what I was doing right before this.
I know. All we needed is one more social service or whatever Looking Glass is on this show. So that's good. Now we got Twitter, Facebook.
Everything. We got our bases covered.
Yeah. Well, we are talking about the new Fox supernatural, superhero, crime, procedural drama premiered this week. It is called Second Chance. Olivia, what did you think?
It was kind of like average fan fiction brought to life onto a TV show. It was sort of like someone sat down and they read, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and got really inspired and wanted to make it into a high-tech, remix, and they wrote a fan fiction, except it's people who are being paid to do this and it's on TV.
Yeah. So the premise of this show is that, I feel like it's been the entire podcast explaining the premise of this show.
I know,
there was a lot happening in this pilot. I mean, there's a lot of different elements of this, but in short, a corrupt, now very old cop, who's since been retired, is murdered. Everyone thinks it's a suicide, but unrelatedly, a tech company. Oh my god, I'm already lost.
My brain just started scrambling.
Yeah. So there's these two tech billionaires. I think the way to start this is from the tech side. There's these two tech billionaires who are twins and have kind of a creepy twin vibe going. And a man and a woman, and the woman has terminal cancer. And so the man, who is the sort of reclusive, like, ultra genius of the two, the more science oriented of the two, while the woman is the more like personality, like the face of the two. The man has developed together, I guess they've developed a way to bring a person with a certain like genetic sequence back to life, with the intention of like harvesting the white blood cells that they produce in order to fight the terminal cancer that the woman has. Oh my gosh. I'm exhausted.
So you feel winded yet? Do you need take a breather, get a glass of water? So
Olivia, thumbs up or no, I'm kidding. I mean, that's the problem with this show, right? Is that like it's got so much happening in this pilot, and it just feels really crammed. And I mean, you talk about like not letting moments breathe. Like the concept of resurrection from the dead, I have never seen it more glossed over than here.
Right? It's sad because that's the entire tale of Frankenstein, and they're supposed to be doing a retelling of Frankenstein, and yet, like you just said, that's the thing that they never really touch on.
They don't even make an effort to do the science behind it. Like there's no like exposition scene like, oh, this is how it's going to happen. It's literally, they don't even explain how they get the body. Like it's literally flip the switch, he's back, let's do this. And it's like, I don't know, like for a show of this nature, I think it kind of has to live in that a little bit more. It seems so eager to get to what is sure to be like a sort of weekly procedural sort of faux superhero drama about this now resurrected very old man who's in a young man's body, fighting crime, which is my understanding of the direction that this goes, considering that he immediately, like half a minute after being resurrected, he goes off to fight crime. I don't know. This is charting the emotional story here is a fool's errand. Like, there is absolutely no continuity to what the characters believe about the world or understand about the world, or just, like, there's no connection with what the main character is feeling or how he relates to being, how like, he relates his own experiences to being resurrected somehow. This show is so uninterested in what I would consider to be the interesting aspects of this story.
Right? But there is a lot of technology. So
Oh,
there
is there?
is that. There's zero character development or interest or any kind of, substance that isn't 18,000 plot points. But there are a lot of computers.
A lot of computers, a lot of well, and I don't know. What was there anything you liked about this?
The one thing I would say is I do like the diversity.
Mhm.
I like how it wasn't, just two good looking white actors on the show. I think that was kind of nice to see. But unfortunately, the talent and the diversity wasn't well utilized. And it really doesn't make a difference in a pilot that just kind of is blah and it's just not good.
Yeah. So what you're referring to is that the tech billionaire twins are Indian, I believe.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, it's not like a lily white cast, but it's also like we didn't even get into like there's a police corruption thing, and when the guy gets his new body, he goes back and talks to his son, who is like a major character on the show, but he's now younger than his son, so he has to sort of be undercover. It's like there's just so much, and for a pilot that is dealing with big ideas, it introduced so much, and I don't know, because here's the thing, and here's what I wanted to get to, is that despite all the flaws and sort of the real-time knowledge that what I was watching wasn't very good and was kind of a mess, I did find this very watchable, and I also am a hook, line, and sinker sucker for this kind of light sci-fi. For like, I was so all in on the first season of Fringe. Like this,
Yep, I know that.
the first season of Fringe is like my ideal network drama, which is it's got sci-fi in it, but it's also got this like heavy procedural element, and every episode is sort of a cool new idea that they explore, and then they go on to the next idea. But of course, there's this meta story that culminates. And I actually, with each passing season, became less interested in Fringe because the show became more directly serialized. And I really liked the show when it was like a sort of case of the week thing. I thought it was more interesting, and so there's some potential for that here. And like I'm predisposed to like that, but it just this pilot muddles it up so badly. It doesn't seem to have a sense of what its main story is, or what it's really interested in, or why we should at all care about this character who seemed like a real jerk as an old man and is now back as a young man. I don't know why he couldn't have just been like a nice grandfather figure. Like I don't know why we shouldn't be like just directly rooting for him. Like why he had to be like a hard-charging womanizer. I don't know what any of the material with the call girl got us. Or anything like that. I don't know why that character was involved, or what kind of shading they were trying to provide, but all it made me do is like really dislike the main character of the show.
No, I completely agree. And I feel like this is a classic, another example of one of those shows that is like trying really hard to be cutting edge.
Yeah.
But then everything else suffers for it. Like, it looks really good. It's, like, very, like, they have all these, like, really cool shots. And, like, it's all very high tech. And you have, these attractive, like, lead cast members. But there's really nothing backing it. It's sort of all smoke and mirrors to disguise the fact that there's kind of a lot of things happening, but really nothing happening at the same time.
Yeah, it's a show that doesn't understand why it's on television. And we've said that about a few pilots recently, where it's usually with comedy, like shows that don't understand why they're funny. This is a drama that doesn't understand what its appeal is, and so it's throwing a lot of stuff at the wall and sort of trying to find something to latch onto. And that's to me, this premise is really interesting. The sort of retelling of Frankenstein, but with a modern update, and sort of packaging that as a procedural. Like, I can really get behind that, and sort of go along for the ride with all the interesting tech stuff, because it does have a kind of Fringe element with Looking Glass being this sort of massive dynamic style, like Uber corporation that has unlimited resources. Like I can roll with that, and I can roll with this guy's superpowers and all of that, but there's so much happening, and none of it resonates, and I don't like the main character. and there was no, like, absolutely no sense of momentum in this pilot. It felt like they had a checklist of scenes they had to get through, and they just, like, sort of dutifully went down the checklist and got through all of them. Like, there's no, like, storytelling craft here. As you mentioned, there's a lot of pretty bells and whistles, but it just there's just no, the show just doesn't have a sense of why it's a show. It's got what I think is a good premise. It's got some interesting actors, although I don't think the lead is particularly interesting.
I did struggle with watching definitely his scenes. Like, it was sort of like, it was very flatlined. And, you know, to carry a show like this, I think you really do have to be a very dynamic lead actor. But yeah, it was just falling very, very flat for me.
Well, and I don't know what he brings. And that's one of the, like, casting things, is that if you're going to have a show like this, he's got to bring something. You know, I mean, again, I'm using Fringe a little too liberally here, but it's like, well, what does John Noble bring to Fringe? Well, he brings the whole show. Like, him as Walter is, like, the defining thing of Fringe. He's, like, a fascinating, like, actor who's giving a fascinating performance. And you go down the list on that show, it's like the actors bring stuff to those roles. There's something. Oh my gosh, I forgot who the lead is. I forgot the actress's name, but it's been a while since Fringe has been on the air. But it's like she brings a certain vibe to that role that plays well. And the lead, Rob Kaczynski, he's fine. You know, he's in one of my favorite movies, Pacific Rim, although briefly. But he's just, I don't know what he's bringing here. I don't know what his deal is. I don't from this pilot, I have no indication, like, what kind of vibe or what kind of interesting performance he's bringing to a character who has, like, really, like, basic and surface level shading from this pilot and a sort of boring backstory. And, like, you've got to, you know, it's like on Sherlock, it's like, what Benedict Cumberbatch brings so much to that role. It's like, if you put this guy in as Sherlock Holmes, suddenly nobody's interested in Sherlock Holmes. It's like you've got to have an actor who's doing something with this role. He's got to be doing something, and he's not doing anything. It's not that he's not like a talented actor or whatever. It's just he's not doing anything. He's just like a generic actor in a police procedural, and he doesn't have a hook. He doesn't have a thing. He's just, like, doing a very straightforward performance, and that is not what this role calls for.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So this show also went. I think an indication of what happened here is the fact that the show went through 3 names and was supposed to premiere, I think, over a year ago. It was originally called, I think, The Frankenstein Code, which to me is such a better name than Second Chance. Like, Second Chance sounds like a bad 90s sitcom to me. like,
oh wait, could you imagine if there was a Frankenstein sitcom where this was all just taken to a 3-cam studio?
Let's do it.
That needs to happen. I'm already just calling that.
I'm thinking of the Unfrozen Caveman Lawyer SNL sketch. Like, I feel like that is the basis for a Frankenstein sitcom. But no, like, The Frankenstein Code isn't a great name. It sounds like a hokey, like a historical gothic romance novel or something. But it's like, that's interesting at least. Second Chance is like the name that if you typed the specs of this pilot into a computer, the computer would spit out for you. Like, I had to write it down, or else I would never have remembered that the show was called Second Chance. So like, and I feel like that's kind of what happened. Is this show probably started with a lot of interesting ideas. And then the fact that it's on a network and you know, just to me, it's like, what would happen if, like, Mr. Robot had been on Fox? Like, I bet something similar would have happened. It's like all those interesting, fascinating ideas, everything that made Mr. Robot, in my opinion, one of, like, the 3 best shows on TV in the last year, would have been, like, sanded away. And I don't mean to be too generous to the people behind this show and act like they had, like, the next Mr. Robot on their hands, but I wonder if it's a sort of lesser version of this where they had some interesting things going, and the sort of network TV process, you know, like the tides over millennia, just sanded it away. And then we're left with, like, a very generic, very muddled show that feels like it was kind of noted to death by executives. And, like, it's like, oh, you have to do this. You have to have this scene. You have to have this scene. And they just sort of packed it all together into what is really like a mess of a pilot.
I completely agree. Again, it sort of had all of the glossy elements of what would draw you in on, like, again, a cutting edge, you know, pilot, just kind of, there was nothing there, but it fit the bill, generically speaking.
Yeah, and I felt the same way about another Fox show, Minority Report, and you could say a lot of the same about Limitless, although I was and still am wooed by Bradley Cooper, appearing once every 10 episodes. But there's a lot of shows like this, where it's like a sci-fi show that doesn't really, like, it starts with a fairly interesting idea, and then it very quickly, like, unravels, basically, like, within the span of the pilot episode. And this is probably even a worse version of that than those two. So this show did a 1.2 in the demo with 4.8 million viewers. Not great. Not as like catastrophic as some of the premieres we've seen, but also not anywhere near good. So do you think this will be canceled quickly, make it through the season, or renewed for next season?
I really feel like this is going to be canceled quickly.
Yeah, well, the fact that it has already had its episode order cut from 14 to 11 is probably a bad sign.
Probably not a great sign.
Not great. Like, Fox saw this pilot and was like, oh boy. So yeah, this one, I mean, it might make it through the 11. It feels like the kind of show that after 4 is going to get bumped to Saturday night and kind of burned off to little fanfare. So final verdict, Olivia, thumbs up or thumbs down on Second Chance?
This is a thumbs down. This show, I really don't think deserves a second chance.
Oh, well, I'm not going to top that. I will say that I have given every show of 2016 a thumbs down, and that streak is continuing. So
It's going to be a good year.
Yeah, that's my New Year's resolution, is to not give a thumbs up this year. And so a pilot is really going to have to sweep me off my feet to give it a thumbs up. I'm going to need something big, because here's the thing, and I'm not just being cranky. It's like, there is so much TV on right now. Like, there is just so much. Like, I still have like 7 episodes of Man in the High Castle to watch, and I really enjoyed the first few episodes of that show. And I just haven't had like the opportunity to catch up on it, because there's just so much happening right now. So if you're going to premiere a new show, it's got to be bringing something to the table. Like, it's got to be interesting in a way that I actually want to like take time to watch it. So my grading is probably going to get even harsher, if that's possible.
Ready for it.
Yeah, well, this one, of course, was not a hard thumbs down. So.
No, not at all.
All right. Well, you've been listening to the Pilot Roundtable, a TVBinges.com and Southgate Media Group production. You can listen to all of our episodes on iTunes, where you can rate and review us. We'd appreciate that. Or find us at southgatemediagroup.com. Follow Olivia on Twitter at RichardsOlivia, and me on Twitter at KyleLovesTV. Until next time.